have the bulletin, have some paper in front of you. And so I'm going to invite you now to do something with that. And it would be helpful if every one of us would do this. So it's a fill in the blank, and it's two variations of the same question. And by the way, when you write this down, the answer to these questions might be kind of personal. And so I invite you to write something down, but you can feel free to write it in code so that the person next to you doesn't read over your shoulder and know what you're talking about. You can just write initials, or if you're like me, you write so messy that no one could read it anyway. Whatever you want to do, but it would be helpful to actually put this down. Have you thought about this? That, man, if this would happen, if I had this, then I would really be happy. So what would that thing? If I had this, then I'd really be happy. Or another variant of that, if you could say, if my life would be so much better, my life would be way better if only I had this. And maybe it might be if I didn't have this, right? And maybe it's something that you have that you wish you didn't. Okay? Can you think of something? If I just had this, if a genie could come to me, wave a magic wand, and change this circumstance in my life, give me this, take that away, what would it be? And it will be helpful as we go through this message series, or this message now, if you had something in mind. Okay? So what would it be? I'm going to tell you a story or a reflection about myself, and it's a little embarrassing, and so I'm just going to trust that you will not look down on me, but I'm going to tell you this is the unvarnished truth. So last year, I had the opportunity, Charlene and I, to go to Switzerland. Some of you know I do teaching periodically for an organization called Youth with a Mission. Stands for YWAM, is the initials for this, Youth with a Mission. And they have training schools for missionaries, and I teach addiction and recovery at these training schools, mostly in the U.S. And here I had this opportunity. I heard about this school that they have in Switzerland. Never been to Switzerland before. How cool would this be? Charlene and me get on a plane, and we spent a week and a half in Switzerland. People say, what was it like in Switzerland? And let me be honest with you. We get there, and we find out that we're in a base, a training base, which was basically and they have a lot of these in Switzerland, a huge house. I'm talking about, it's 3 stories, maybe about 40 rooms, and everyone on the base either lives in this house or another house. So there's about 30 people on this base, about 20 students and about 10 staff. And so Charlene and I lived in one of the rooms, or we spent that time in one of the rooms on this house, and we shared a bathroom with some other people, which is not our favorite thing to do. And we were up on a hill. Switzerland is gorgeous. This is actually a picture of the property when we look down the hill, and that's the little town there, and that's actually Lake Geneva. But anyway, we're up in this, it's a community, it's again a very small base, one big house with 30 people, and we're sort of stuck there. And there's I don't know how to say. I'm just being honest. The food was not great, and I love food. The food was not great, and I love my hobby is to go to coffee shops, just hang out, go to restaurants, run around. I love doing that. Well, we couldn't rent a car. We're stuck up here. I teach in the mornings, and then so we had time before, and then the afternoons and evenings, and then a little bit of time after. And they had so we're like, okay, what are we going to do? We're just going crazy here. And they had some cars on the base that we could drive if they weren't using them. So we took a car out a couple of times. And one time we took out a van. And in Switzerland, they have cameras everywhere. to monitor your driving. So, and they have very high fines. And so we were really concerned about, obeying all traffic laws. I'm very concerned about that generally, you understand, but especially there I was. And the van, we took this van, and parking is a real difficulty. It was stressful driving around, and we went into this place, and it's packed, people everywhere, trying to find a place to park, go into this parking garage, and then we came about this far from smashing into this van in a parking garage that had a very low ceiling. We realized just in time, this is too low for this van, so we back out anyway and didn't even go. So we had one time, then another time we took out a car, and I got into an accident. We're going through a roundabout, person in front of me stopped on a dime, and I was talking to Charlene or looking, and I didn't see it, smacked this person. It's not my car, it's the YWAM's car. They're not rich, right? And I smacked it hard. It was an older car, and I'm sure it was totaled. We limped. We were able to get it back up to the base because it happened right here in this town. And what they did is one of the guys there was really mechanical, and so rather than total out the car, rather than go out to insurance, they bought a new front end, the plastic for the front end, the top for the hood, and they bought a new radiator, and he and another guy just put that in, and I paid for it all. And so instead of going to this thing, well, let me just say this trip cost us a lot of money, okay? So we were bored. So what was it like in Switzerland? It was boring, and it was stressful, and I got into an accident, and it was challenging. So here's the thing, though. I choose not to do this. I don't like, if I travel, to post stuff on social media, I could have posted stuff on social media, and it would have been amazing, because there were these amazing views and amazing places that we saw. And you could have looked at my social media and thought, wow, Mark, that's so awesome to be there in Switzerland. That's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And yet, what was it really like? Now, I'm embarrassed to talk about this, because we have a phrase, we talk sometimes about first world problems, right? That who are you to complain? You're complaining about going to Switzerland with your wife and having, see, here, this is what we're going to talk about today. Life is weird. We have these expectations about this is going to be a certain thing, and then it turns out to be different than we expected. So here's this principle I want to share with you. For me, this has been life-changing, and I hope that it is for you too. And it's called the 50-50 principle. And the 50-50 principle is going to seem really basic, but stick with me, because I think it can change your life too. The principle is stated simply: life is always 50-50. Life is always 50-50. On this side of eternity, life is 50-50. And what that means is there's some really good stuff, and then there's some really bad stuff. And all of us, we love to daydream about when this happens, then my life's going to be amazing. And I want to speak especially to the young people here, students. You probably have this idea that, man, if I can just get into this situation, if I'm not dating someone, if I could just have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, if I could just get into this college, if I could just get this great job, then my life's going to be amazing. It's going to be so awesome. And what happens is that then we think about the lack of happiness that we have, the discontentment, the fact that our life sort of stinks in this situation, and we think if we can just get into that situation, then our life's going to be so much better. And the thing is, it gets better in some ways, and it also gets worse in some ways. It's a weird reality that life is always 50-50. Now, a couple of qualifiers to this principle. It's not always an even 50-50, right? Maybe it's 70-30. And sometimes in our lives, terrible things happen, and it feels like it's mostly negative, painful, suffering. It's 70-30, or maybe 30-70. And other times it's just really great. We have a lot of great stuff happening, and it's like 70% positive, but yet even so, there's some negative there. There's always going to be some struggle, some pain, some problem. And once again, we have to be honest. We talk about this phrase of first world problems, and we do need to acknowledge that we are very blessed. Just materially, in terms of health opportunities, or the opportunities for health care that we have, how blessed we are compared to someone in a third world country, or someone living where there's war or where there's famine, right? So it almost seems inappropriate for us to be complaining when we have it so good, like it seems weird for me to be complaining about going to Switzerland, right? But we got to face this reality that no matter how, quote unquote, good it is, there's always going to be some problems, some pain. Just again this week, we had the news about another famous celebrity dying by suicide, Sinead O'Connor. And it's a weird thing, and it happens all the time, that people who seem to us to be the people who have everything, we find out that they are unhappy. I think I mentioned this before. Dave Chappelle, the comedian Dave Chappelle, I heard him being interviewed about this, and he said, it's nobody likes to hear this, and everybody gets mad when I talk about it, but the reality is, as wealthy as any of us are who are famous, and as famous as we are, we have problems, we have pain, our life is rough, but people get mad when we say that because it seems like we have all the things that everybody else wants, but yet we get to the point where we have all this stuff and we realize our life stinks too. It's not about that situation. Okay, that said, the second qualifier is, yes, we can improve our lives. If our life is negative in a certain way, we can do things to change that. And what will happen then is we'll have different problems. And maybe they're better problems, but they'll still be problems. Someone who is poor and who is terrible credit rating and has people calling them, repossessing their cars, chasing after them because of debts. Maybe they're homeless, and they can change those circumstances. Maybe, possibly that things could change for them financially, and they could become wealthy. And they're going to have the problems of a wealthy person, or maybe we'd probably prefer the problems of wealth to the problems of poverty, right? Or a person could be super unhealthy and have problems associated with that, and yet they get healthy, and then there's other problems. This happens in the weight loss field all the time, that people who are overweight and they just have this dream about how life is going to be so awesome if they get thin. And if I was just thin and better looking, how much better my life's going to be. But then you get thinner and better looking, and then you have other problems to deal with. There may be better problems, but they're still problems. Okay. So now at this point you're probably going, okay, Mark, yeah, we get it, okay? So why does this matter so much? How does this actually help us? You're actually making us more depressed, because what I'm saying is, whatever it is you think you want, you're going to have problems there too. So suck it up, I guess. Well, all right. This can change your life. Number one, Stop setting yourself up for disappointment. We put all these hopes and expectations about how great our life is going to be when we have different circumstances, when we have this or that or the other thing, and then we get that thing, and it feels empty, and it can be very, very challenging for people when they get the things that they've been searching for. It's like the proverbial, you get up on the ladder and then you realize that, well, it's not where I want to be anyway. The ladder's on the wrong wall. So again, I'm thinking about this especially for the teenagers here, students that are here. Just be aware. It's great to have your goals and expectations and things that you want for your life, but just know that whatever your problems are, you're going to have other problems. So a person who is sad and depressed as a single person and can't wait until they're married, and if they can have a person that they love that's going to fix it all, you know what happens? They find someone, they get married, then they're a sad and depressed married person. Or you have someone who's like fearful and anxious all the time, and they're struggling about money, and then if they can figure, if I could just get more money and get in a better place financially, then it's going to fix it all. But what happens is then they get wealthy, and then they become a depressed or an anxious and fearful rich person. So there's something that we've got to change here. Number two, this can help us stop being so jealous of other people all the time. You know, so much of our media is built around jealousy, and social media is built around, it's not maybe intentional, but it's sort of like we look at other people's lives and we think, oh man, if I just had that, they must be so happy. And then it doesn't work that way. And if you just recognize that, I'll just say it helps. It helps a lot. If you can recognize that whatever someone has, there's going to be problems that they're facing. And finally, number three, and this is the most important. If there's nothing else you remember from what I'm talking about today, remember this. If life is always 50-50, changing your circumstances isn't going to make it different. It's still going to be 50-50 over there. But the good news is, you can start living with joy now. You can be happy now. You can be content now. Because you can choose what you want to focus on. Neuroscientists tell us that at any point in time, from moment to moment, we have, let's say we have 100,000 things. No, let's make it, I don't know. Let's just say we have 1,000 things that we can think or focus attention on. So we have like way more capacity that's around us than we have actually the ability to choose. We have to choose among all these 1,000 things which one or two that we're going to focus on. So all the time, we're constantly choosing, we're constantly filtering all this information, and the quality of our life depends on what we filter, how we filter, what we focus on. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. And remember that our whole way of life in 21st century industrial societies, our whole economy is run on marketing, and our information economy is run on the focus of attention, and everything that is coming at us, the goal is to make you and make me fearful, unhappy, and discontented. You know why? Because if we are confident and happy and contented, we're not going to buy anything. People who are peaceful and happy and content are terrible consumers. So everything that a company and all the millions of companies around are focused on is figuring out how to make you a little less happy and a little less content, and other organizations a little more afraid, so that that you can then do what they want you to do. So we have all of this coming at us, and the issue is now, what are we going to focus on? 50-50. What am I going to focus on? What are you going to focus on? I love this picture. Wait. Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. I love this picture that I'm not going to be able to show you. So among other things, we talked about this morning that we had a person who, our drummer, John, was in the hospital, so he's not able to drum. We're having trouble with our tech. Somehow between my computer and this computer at the church, or in this room, it gets weird. Anyway, how about I'll leave that picture off for now and just tell you this story. So think about this. This is what your life is like. When I was a kid, we used to hang out in machine sheds. I grew up on a farm, and my dad and my cousins, my neighbors, we all had huge machine sheds. And we'd go in there, and they'd have cars, farm equipment. Sometimes there'd be a couch and chairs there. Sometimes there'd be junk. Sometimes there'd be garbage, manure in parts of these sheds. So the coolest thing was to go there at night and to explore around with a flashlight. So I want you to picture this. You're in a huge machine shed, 100 feet wide, about a half mile long. And it's filled with all kinds of things. Some really cool things, and then some dangerous things, and some gross things, some things that you're afraid of. And then there's this wall of pictures that are like really great memories that remind you of great things. Then there's this other wall that's a picture of all your failures and all the things that have gone wrong in your life, just like a picture wall, right? It's nighttime. It's pitch dark. And you have a little light on your head, like those miners' hats or the things. So you can perfectly see what is right in front of you, what you look at. And you're going to spend the next 16 hours in that shed. Go. Now you have the opportunity for the next 16 hours to spend time in that shed. And your experience in that shed is going to depend on what you choose to focus on. Then you go to sleep. The next day you wake up and you're in a different shed, different machine shed. And it's got all kinds of things as well. Some good things, some bad things. And you're in this thing, it's dark, and you only can see what you focus on. And that's your life. Every day is like that. There's a million things that you can fill your day with, your life with, and it all depends on what you focus on. And you realize you could have extremely different experiences in the same machine shed over that period of time. It all depends on where you want to hang out, what you want to focus on. That is our life. So the Apostle Paul knew this. Friends, this is the secret of being content. The secret of being content. You and I are as contented and happy as we want to be. Changing the circumstances, it might make our life better. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that it won't. Changing circumstances can make our life better, but it's only going to be a different machine shed. And there's going to be some really cool things now because we've changed, but there's still going to be, can I say it? There's still going to be crap in that shed. So Paul says here to this church, I've learned the secret of being content. whatever the circumstances, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Now, if you have a Bible there, you can look earlier in this chapter. He talks about some of the things he's experienced, and it gives us clues on what that secret is. Earlier in the chapter, verse 4, he says, rejoice in the Lord. I'll say it again, rejoice. Rejoice always. Wow. No matter what, no matter what's in that machine shed on that day, find something to rejoice in. Do not be anxious about anything. Remember that wall? Got all the pictures in the machine shed for that day that you're worried about, stressed about, bummed about. Don't worry about anything, but in every situation, all the things that you come across, present your requests to God, notice, with thanksgiving. And then, verse 7, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Now, how about this? Verse 8, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Or, in the original Greek, it means shine the flashlight of your awareness on. No, I'm kidding. It doesn't say that in the Greek. But that's the idea. The flashlight where you look, that is your conscious awareness, right? Focus your conscious awareness on things that are noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy. And he wouldn't tell us to do this if it was not possible for us to do this, right? We have the capacity to shine that light on a variety of things. So, just real quick, he'd learned, this is what Paul learned about the secret of being content. Number one, to find something to rejoice in. Maybe your life is 10-90. 10% fun, good things, and 90% horrible. But just find some things, even within that 10%, to rejoice in. He'd learned to take his anxieties to God, right? Don't be anxious about anything, he says in verse 6, but in everything, through prayer and petition, present your requests to God, and then the peace of God which transcends understanding, will guard your hearts. And you do that, the things that you're stressed about, you bring those to God, and you do that, he said, with thanksgiving. So this is one of the keys, this issue of gratitude, that whatever's happening in my life, whatever's going on in my machine shed on this particular day, I'm going to find something that is good that I can be thankful for and focus with gratitude on that. And then finally, verse 8, I emphasized that earlier, that you focus the light of your conscious awareness on things that are good and pure and right and noble, excellent, praiseworthy. And then finally, this is the verse later on, and this is the verse that we are on. He talked about in verse 12, I've learned the secret of being content. And then verse 13, as you remember, he said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so Christ coming into my life allows me to see things differently, allows me to think about life from an eternal standpoint, allows me to recognize that I am loved, I'm valued. And so out of that awareness, one time Jesus talked about that whoever comes to me will be like someone who has streams of water flowing up from inside him. I think that's John 5 or 6. So it's like we have these streams of living water flowing from us. So the bottom line, no matter what's going on in your life, you can tell multiple stories about it. You can tell a really crummy story about your life right now, You can tell a story about your life right now that's pretty good stuff. And you get to choose which one. So, what was it like when I was in Switzerland? It was amazing. It was awesome. We got to see some really amazing things. There were people that we met, that we got to know in this community that we're still in touch with. I had the opportunity to teach, which I love to do. So it was a great time for Charlene and me to be together. It was a once-in-a-lifetime awesome trip, and I'll never forget it. So both of those stories are true.